Hi, in today's video we're going to take a quick look at a NuTone IM3204. We don't get a lot of 3204s here in the shop. In our local area, it's not a very common model. This one was sent in by a customer because it has a problem, and I'm going to see if I can get it straightened out for him. I thought it would be a good opportunity to sort of take a look at it in greater detail, how it's built, what it's like inside. The IM3204 was manufactured between 1997 and the end of 2004 or sometime into 2005. It's not really clear when it was actually discontinued. It was the entry-level builder model of the day, and I recall at the time it was explained that NuTone designed it specifically for builders and developers in markets like Florida, where they build very large and extensive retirement communities where you might have 200 or 300 intercoms all in one development. And of course, cost is an issue on developments like that. They had a target price they were going for, and the design was done to meet the price. So it's limited in some ways, and as I said, it is the entry-level model. The next model up from this would be the IM3303. So it's similar. The styling is the same, but it's more limited in what it can do. It has a backlit LCD display. There is no clock on an IM3204. When it's turned off, the display is blank. You have a master volume control here, which is the volume for the speaker that's built into it. You have your tuning buttons here, manual up and down tuning plus scan. You have program on and off. It has built-in AM/FM radio, which you can select with the program select button. There is one auxiliary input which you can choose from the program select, and you can program up to 4 AM and 4 FM radio stations into the memory. You have your intercom controls here, which are just like on all other NuTone intercoms from the same time. You have inside patio talk, door talk, and end call. And then down here we have one door that opens up, and you have your 6 room control switches. This is one of the limitations on an IM3204. It was not designed to have more than 6 remote stations, and that would be a combination of inside and patio stations, plus you could have up to 2 entry door stations. It does have the ability to have an optional chime module built in, which you would hear ring at the master and in the remote stations. Here you have your basic system controls. You have intercom volume, loudness on and off. When loudness is on, it adds 8 decibels of bass into the music. System volume, which is your music volume throughout the house. Bass and treble adjustments. A memory set button to program your preset radio stations. And this little opening right here is the reset button, and you need a small device like a small screwdriver or a toothpick to push it, and it resets the microcontroller that's built into it. One of the more interesting facts about the IM3204 is that it was designed in parallel with another model. NuTone in 1997, when the IM3204 was introduced, there was another model that was introduced at the same time, which was the NuTone SR9000. And SR stands for stereo receiver, and it was a model 9000. I'm not sure how they came up with the 9000. I guess it's a big number, so that makes it sound more important. And the SR9000 was in every sense a replacement for the previous model of an ST1000, which was an AM/FM cassette stereo music center. The SR9000 looks almost identical to this, except it doesn't have the intercom control buttons here, so it has a different overlay panel on this part of the faceplate. And when you open the door here, there is no intercom volume adjustment because it doesn't include an intercom. It's not an intercom set. It's not an intercom master station. It's a stereo music receiver. Almost all NuTone radio intercoms are monaural systems, which means one speaker in each room, but the SR9000 is true stereo. It has right and left channels, although you were limited to up to 6 pairs of stereo speakers, so the limitation is the same. I don't think the SR9000 was very successful because, according to the information I have from NuTone, it was introduced along with the IM3204 in 1997, but it was discontinued in 2001. So I doubt it was very successful. So I don't have an SR9000 to show you. I will see see if I can find a decent picture of an old NuTone catalog and put it in the video. But we can take a look at the back of the IM3204, and what we see here is a pretty conventional layout, although it's a little minimalistic in my opinion, but it does have some interesting points. So you have the master station speaker cone here. Without actually measuring it, I'm pretty certain that this is a 4-inch speaker cone instead of a 5-inch. It's rated at 25 ohms at 4 watts. Down here, this particular master station, it has the optional chime module down here. You have a 2-board construction. You have the top board here, which is primarily you have power supply, amplifier, AM/FM tuner, and I think that this is part of the intercom control circuit here, this little daughter board. Unfortunately, there is no service manual for the 3204 or for the SR9000. NuTone was doing some transitional things at the time that these models were made or introduced, and no one ever got around to writing a proper service manual for it. One of the most interesting things is, and I'll show you more close up, there are a lot of unpopulated spots on this board, and I think when we take this board out, this is the microcontroller board, we're going to find something very similar. So here in this more of a close-up view, you can see here the silk screening on the board. Here we have it silk screen. We have a resistor, a transistor, a capacitor, another transistor, and then over here we have capacitors here, another film capacitor there, and then the most interesting bit is this right here, this row of unpopulated holes. Right here is the amplifier IC. This is IC 103, and over here this is IC 102. These are amplifier ICs, and the reason that there are so many unpopulated spots is this board is shared between the SR9000 and the IM3204. So the way it's converted from one use to the other is by which components are actually populated. Since the IM3204 is a mono radio intercom station, you only need one amplifier, but if you're building a stereo music center to have right and left channels, you need to have a second amplifier IC. One of the interesting things about the amplifier ICs that they decided to use, it's a Sanyo model LA4270, which is a 6-watt dual channel power amplifier. According to the Sanyo data sheet, it has low distortion. It's 1.1% at 6 watts into 8 ohms, so it can handle a lower impedance speaker than 25 ohms. One of the most interesting facts about it is, since it is a dual channel amplifier, which means one IC on its own could be right and left channels, I have a feeling that the way this is used in a 3204 is they're using one channel for the music, and they're using the second channel of the amplifier IC for the intercom. One of the interesting things also about the 3204 as a radio intercom master station is it's a 4-wire system. It's the only 4-wire system that NuTone ever made. In some respects, the 3204 should be the direct replacement for an IM2003, but an IM2003 is a 3-wire system, and so it can't be a direct replacement because now you need 4 wires. If you were going to design a stereo music center like the SR9000, you need to have 4 wires because you don't want a common ground on a stereo system. You want 2 wires for right and 2 wires for left. So that's part of the fundamental design, and I have a feeling that when this board was manufactured so it could be used in an SR9000, and you would have the second amplifier IC, what they would do is, according to the Sanyo data sheet, this amplifier IC is designed and it is allowed that you can bridge the outputs. Bridging the output means that you take the 2 amplifiers that are built into the chip and you join them together so it gives you a greater output without having to make a lot of additional changes on the board. So that would give you a higher output to drive your 6 pairs of stereo speakers. So I'm pretty sure that one IC would be right channel and the other IC would be left channel. Another thing that's kind of interesting has to do with the AM/FM tuner, which is this silver box here that's mounted on the first board. After looking at the schematics carefully, it seems that this is a different tuner module than what's commonly used in a 3303 or a 4406. And these tuner assemblies, which were commonly, they come from suppliers that commonly make them for car audio, radios, and things like that. This particular one happens to be a tuner that has built-in capability for stereo FM reception. There's a jumper that you add onto the board, and when you add the jumper, it has the ability of receiving and processing stereo FM radio signal. When you're receiving FM stereo, there's actually a stereo indicator that comes up on the display, which you don't get on the IM3204. So it's kind of an interesting design. And then just to round out the changes on the differences between the 3204 and the SR9000. Here we have on the 3204, these would be our auxiliary inputs. The 3204 only has one, but the SR9000 actually has 2 inputs. One input, but it's a stereo input. So it actually says on the board here, we have CD/tape. This is marked as right and left. So it's only populated on the right channel for 3204, but in an SR9000 you would have 2 connections because it would be right channel and left channel. I've taken the boards out of the faceplate now, and immediately one of the things I don't like about the way this is designed is the 2 boards are interconnected with these multi-wire ribbon cables here. And unlike other models that NuTone had made, typically these would at one end or the other unplug from one of the boards so you could separate them. These are soldered in place interconnect cables. They don't unplug. So you can't separate the 2 boards easily. You're going to have to work on them flopping around like this, which a guy like me, we don't really appreciate that. So if we look on the back of the main board, we see the same kind of thing we saw before. Here along this row, this row of terminals here, this is where the radio wire for remote music intercom stations would be connected, but we have another row here, 1 through 6, where the connectors haven't been populated, and this is where your wires would connect up for your stereo speakers. Down here we have a microcontroller. It's under a little shield right here, so I'm not going to remove that. I'm pretty certain it's another Sanyo microcontroller. It's probably one of the same models that NuTone uses in the 3303. So here, looking at the front of the microcontroller board, we have a much smaller display assembly than what you would have on a 3303 or a 4406. I'm pretty sure that might have something to do with the reason why you don't have a clock built in all the time. And again, just like the main or the first board, we have lots and lots and lots of unpopulated parts. Down here we have our 6 room control switches or speaker selector switches if it were an SR9000, intercom volume adjustment pot, loudness switch, system volume pot, bass and treble, memory set micro switch, and our reset micro switch. So there's not a lot on here. So here's kind of a close-up view of the bottom right hand corner of the microcontroller board, and it's easy to see, and with the silk screening, all of the unpopulated areas of this board. There's quite a few components that are left off. So that's sort of a brief overview of a IM3204/SR9000. For all its simplicity on the IM3204 side of things, we don't get a lot of these in for repair. This one has kind of a peculiar problem. The radio plays at the master station, but it stopped playing on the remote stations, and I think I have an idea what might be wrong with it. I think it has to do with the amplifier IC or the amplifier circuit, because I think the way it's laid out and the way it's designed, the feed for the master station speaker is separate from the feed to the remote stations, or the amplifier output to the remote stations, and that might be a byproduct of the SR9000 design compromise. I think the SR9000 still has a single monaural speaker built into it, and what that tells me is they might be using one channel of the amplifier IC to feed the master speaker for music while using a different channel to feed the remote stations, but I'll have to do some testing and see. I don't think it'll be a terribly difficult repair. That's sort of an overview of the IM3204. Perhaps someday someone will send me an SR9000 to repair, and then we can take a look at that one also. I hope you found this video to be interesting and helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, we would appreciate it. By subscribing, you'll get notifications when we put up new videos. We try to do at least one video a week, so there's always something new and interesting in the world of vintage NuTone intercom. So that's all for today. See you on the next video.